July 25th, 2026. We are at 1:12 a.m. in the morning. Can't be helped. A lot going on. And you will see, we're going to be talking about quite a bit today, putting a lot of pieces together. This is day 2,182 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss. He's the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier, Richard Halliday, whistleblowing on this major cartel terroristic organizations, their infiltration on the base and at our border. And that goes beyond the border. It's so big. That's why you see there was an all in out orchestration to discredit Richard and to target him, of course, and then to take his life and then to hide the evidence, which is his remains. His remains stolen off of the base after he had been killed in the arms room there, building 2479 on Fort Bliss, in a restricted area. All kinds of guards, all kinds of videos. But you see, our base was infiltrated, and that has been confirmed by the Director of Emergency Services, Thomas Kane, and of course by the actions of the chain of command, and that hard evidence. You can't change their reaction, right? You can't change the paperwork that they put in place to cover up the stealing of Richard's body off of Fort Bliss and the trafficking of his body to Mexico, to Chihuahua, Mexico. Chihuahua is a state of Mexico that borders Texas and New Mexico also, where his body was taken for disposal, and evidence indicates to a place called Plenitude Crematorium, and that is the funeral fraud organization that's tied to Group of Purchase, which is like the monopoly funeral home providers, um, um, across borders on both sides of the borders, that have also contracts with Fort Bliss with our military. So let's get started because there's so much I can go into the prime suspects and all of the bullying that we got, the intimidation, the threats, um, the harassment that we received, and the common denominator was the Mormon Mafia and the funeral mortuary affairs individuals tied to funeral homes and mortuary affairs, and of course to the cartel um, trafficking, corruption, and now the watchical meaning the fuel fraud, the fuel theft and fraud that goes along with it because of all the forged documents that it takes to smuggle and transport stolen fuel across the border multiple times. Um, and then sell it, right? Sell it, and then clean the money up and everything. So this is what President Trump is revealing, and our investigation is just really looking into what President Trump has been releasing as far as all the documents and putting all the pieces together. So today is no different than that. President Trump released a very interesting truth, and let's read it together because it's really amazing. Um, it says here Canada disinvited the United States of America to the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge, which is fine. It's fine. considering that they are paying substantial tariffs to the United States. But the original deal on the bridge, which was terribly negotiated by the previous administration, no longer stands. We changed the terms of the deal so that the United States of America now gets 50% of the profit. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Well, that is just an amazing truth, isn't it? It's just an amazing post, and it really piqued our interest because I wanted to know, we wanted to know where this Gordie Howe Bridge is, right? Because this is of interest. And why is the United States demanding 50% tariffs from whatever crosses this bridge? And so just going to a map, I think it's really interesting to go to a map. Let's see if I can. Yeah, here we go. So you can see this on the map. This, and I'll zoom in. This is the bridge, the Gordie Howe Bridge. Okay. This is the USA, and this is Canada. Okay. This is the USA, this is Detroit, and this is Canada. And if you kind of zoom out, you can see that this leads right to Toronto. Okay, that road leads right to Toronto. So, but this right here is Canada. This is it. See, this is the line. This is the border line right here. And this is so interesting, right? Because here is Detroit and here is Canada. Okay. That's Windsor, Canada, by the way. And this is Michigan, right? Detroit, Michigan. And that bridge, and if you really zoom in, and let's see if I can get some tilt on it. Okay, this bridge here was being built. See this bridge? I don't know if you can see it here. This bridge here was being built. This is Google Google Earth, and you see here, this is an old picture before the bridge was built, and it leads right to Canada. Here's the Canada side one that they were building. Okay, so this is Canada, United States. So this is an important bridge that connects the two countries. And why is this important to us? Because right here, if you see it, is Marathon Detroit Refinery, Marathon Petroleum Corporation. This is all right here, right by this bridge. And of course, Marathon has a stockholder that is very important because Marathon bought Endeavor. Endeavor, its board member was Paul Foster, okay, from El Paso, Texas. So this matters a whole lot because Endeavor was then taken over by, look, this is all oil, right? This is all oil. This is, oh no, that's the Detroit water, sorry, and sewage. This right here is all the refinery. See right here. Petroleum. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so that is really important to us because Paul Foster it was the big board member for Endeavor who bought um, uh, Western Refinery, which was his company, his refinery company in El Paso. And and so now he sold it for billions, and he used that money to buy into Marathon Petroleum stock. So he's a huge stockholder, millions of stocks of Marathon Petroleum, which gives him a lot of leverage of this company. And of course, we know that Paul Foster is, let's see if I can change this again to go down to Texas. That Marathon is right here in El Paso, Texas, right? Here's Ciudad Juarez. There's Fort Bliss. You can see it. Fort Bliss. This is El Paso. And this is really, really important to understand because Marathon now is under investigation, right? They have a lawsuit against them for price fixing, right? For price gouging during all of this, keeping the prices up. And why? Because they're connected to the cartel. Okay. This area is very connected to the cartel. How can I say that? Because Marathon provides the fuel for Arco gas stations, which is Alejandra de la Vega's um, gas stations. They're on both sides of the border. And uh, and we know that she is the El Paso cartel um, operative. That's a double agent. She has two birth certificates, one for the United States and one for Mexico. That needs to be explained because she is a double agent working simultaneously for Governor Abbott and then for the Chihuahua state government. Um, and was under investigation for favoring her businesses uh, and then of course her husband and her caught in fuel theft called Huachical. And now we have the biggest arrests of Huachical fiscal, which is the very sophisticated kind of fuel theft. It's not like a stagecoach, uh, uh, a stick up of a oil tanker that they still do. They still do that too, the cartels, right? And what kind of character does it take to do something like that? Maybe someone very very mean, right? Or it could be someone very, very desperate because the economy is being so controlled by individuals like, with very evil intentions, Alejandra de la Vega Foster and her husband, Paul Foster, because they absolutely operate to the detriment of El Paso, Texas, and Chihuahua, Mexico, especially Juarez, Mexico, with this fuel theft. Um, and then to see them being in a lawsuit right now for price gouging, that confirms it even more, doesn't it? That's corroborating evidence, and that's all protected by the Mormon Mafia, right? Who have infiltrated into the FBI, i.e., Connell Wetton, who big ties to that very area. Why he's able to operate in the El Paso field office, I don't know. They should send him off if he wants to be an FBI agent. But no, they put him right there where he's from, that has um, confirmed ties, long historical ties to cartel operations. Not just any cartel operations, but terroristic organization level cartel operations, with the Juarez cartel that have their armed military group, the La Linea, headquarters right there, the home of the Mormon colonies, the Nova Casa Grandes, and of course the colonial Dublin, colonial Juarez, where Connell Wetton's father was born. So, so the intelligence agencies that uh, are on Mauro Campos's secret payroll, working in treacherous, they're traitors, right, and rogue circumstances, uh, eh, with unsanctioned operations that even got two CIA uh, agents killed, right there in the Chihuahua area, are operating within the FBI and the EPIC, the El Paso Intelligence Center, and they are absolutely compromised. The FBI office there in El Paso is absolutely compromised, and so is the El Paso Intelligence Center, uh, absolutely compromised, because Maru Campos, the governor of Chihuahua, admitted that she had the ATF and the CIA and the FBI and CBP agents and Homeland Security agents and even DPS, Texas Rangers, operating there in Chihuahua and kidnapping people, which they call an extradition without any extradition legality, no paperwork, no extradition order from a judge, nothing. That's called a kidnapping, y'all. When you go out and grab people and you have no legal right to do it and no legal backing, no legal documentation to make sure that there are receipts there, that's called a kidnapping. And that's what they did to Elmayo, right? And then Connell Wetton confessed to ordering that operation and leading that operation and it's totally unsanctioned. No judge, no paperwork, no extradition orders, nothing. And this is how they were operating, how they do operate there at the border. And that's because they're protecting, number one, the fuel theft. Number one, the fuel theft, which finances all the other trafficking, the child trafficking, the drug trafficking, because in order to enrich yourself in the fuel theft, using the cartels to do the stagecoach stick up type of um, uh, theft of the fuel trunk, the tanker trucks, or even in tapping. They tap the pipelines, right? That is a way that they're stealing the fuel. But then they also have the stealing the fuel from Texas, okay, and bringing it into Mexico, and that's called the Huachicol Fiscal, which they avoid paying taxes on that. And where do they get that oil? And our evidence from years, I mean, I've been saying this for years, um, uh, is that they were stealing fuel from Fort Bliss, because Fort Bliss, and I wonder if I can go way into it. I need to look that up, where they have all their oil tankers on Fort Bliss. I think it's right by the airport. Let's see. I'm trying to look for it, but Fort Bliss is huge. It really is huge, and I need to do a search for it. If anyone can search and send me a picture where all the tankers are from, and they're trying to, well, they're building a railway to hook up to Union Pacific so that Fort Bliss can have those rails of tanker trains, cars that go right to the Pacific Union rails that hook up to the Mexican rail system that would lead right into cartel territory with fuel. And this is such an assault on humanity, because we all need fuel to live, right? It is so, so important. And we all know how we're being squeezed financially. And for Marathon, um, and Paul Foster, who tries to claim to be a philanthropist with his wife, and always like token, but always with an agenda, but the media that they finance and practically own, try to paint them out to be so wonderful, but it's really the opposite. They're really conducting crimes against humanity operations with their nefarious cartel connections that are now designated as terroristic organizations. And why is this important to us? Because Richard was a whistleblower, and the evidence leads to those connected to the distribution of fuel on Fort Bliss, and doing very nefarious things to keep us. If you're going to do fuel theft, then you absolutely want to keep everyone drugged, want to sexed out, drugged out, drunked out, whatever, really messed up, so that they can't um, have any kind of righteous indignation, right? And call out the absolute theft and crimes against humanity that the watchical fuel theft and the forged paperwork and everything is. And when someone gets a little clever and figures it out, like Richard did, and reports it, and they don't do it very often. Richard is really an anomaly. He is a total anomaly. He is the whistleblower that really pieced this all together. And that's why they came after him with full guns, with full blazing organization and cover up and everything. Um, and using from the media to the law, the whole judicial system, to law enforcement, to the cartel, to the chain of command. Think about the amount of money it took to take Richard's, well, to smear him, to take his life, and then to cover up the murder. And, to cover up the cover up. And I'm almost thinking it's at the point where it's the cover up of the cover up of the cover up. So it must cost him so much money to do that. And what does that indicate? That Richard is a total anomaly. He was the whistleblower that pieced it all together and that exposed this entire scheme, this entire crimes against humanity, from the keeping our soldiers drugged out and sexed out and with the child pornography and all of that, but also the watchicle, the fuel theft, and the forged paperwork, and all of that. Um, so, and the crimes against children, the 500,000 children that were trafficked through Fort Bliss as a result of um, of them covering up what Richard was reporting. So it's just really um, all the evidence indicates how big this is, and that Marathon Petroleum is key. Um, One of the very key, oh, and you keep watching it because Paul Foster is a major stockholder with control. I mean, him and his buddy, when they got in 2019, the year of the Walmart mass shooting, uh, even went all out assault on the Marathon CEO, teamed up to get him removed. I wonder why. I wonder why. What I was reading, and I'm not totally briefed on it, but that they were splitting up Marathon, right? They were going to split Marathon up, and that's not what he wanted, apparently. But that is all being exposed. That's all coming together because Marathon is the main fuel distributor to his wife's gas stations, Arco gas stations, and so you know keep your eye on this because uh, you, why else would Canada, right, that gets so much money from the United States, disinvite the United States for the celebration of a bridge connecting the two countries? Okay. They must be really, really PO'd. And I can tell you that with the finances of like 50, by the way, the 50 cartel members from CJNG that were just sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury. The main leader, new leader now from CJNG, is also a dual citizen. He was born in California. Okay, so this Pena, right? I hope I'm saying his La Pena, whatever. Uh, he is, and I have it here. I can um, get his name real quick. I put it in my notes because I thought that was so. Yeah, Juan Carlos González Pelón. Sorry, El Pelón. He's a he's a dual citizen, born in Santa Ana, California, and he is now the new leader of CJNG. I think he was related to El Mencho. Yeah. Oh, the stepfather. His, yeah, his stepfather was El Mencho. And so El Mencho had a direct family member connection to the United States, to California. Uh, you know, and he has a $5 million reward out on him. So uh, it's yeah. So if you're out there and you know something, you have a chance of getting $5 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Um, so this is absolutely about the fuel theft, absolutely about the trafficking, every kind of trafficking. If it's not bolted down, they're going to steal it and traffic it. So huge news on that. The other huge news that I wanted to talk about, and then I'll get to all of the comments, um, was that Cash Patel, and I don't know if he's back yet, but that he took a trip to China. He took a trip to China, and that's huge news, to talk to China's top boss um, investigator. So, and they were going to talk about, get this, I thought it was very interesting, fentanyl, the precursors. And of course, that Strait of Hormuz through Iran is the big doorway to China, to the precursors and stuff, but also cyber fraud, which is very big in Richard's case, drug control and counter narcotics, combating telecom and online fraud. All part of Richard's case, and these cartel operatives, right? Child pornography. Remember that Dallas Hart was caught with child pornography, okay? He was looking for child pornography, and his mother, he went back to the house because he was looking for his child pornography. He wanted to hide it. He was worried about it. And how do we know this? Because of the confessions of Leilani Hart in sworn confessions that were submitted to law enforcement and the intelligence community. And so we know that they were engaged in the worst type of crimes against children and filming it, facilitating the worst type of crimes and facilitating it. Sorry about that. Okay, so online fraud, child pornography, and then anti money laundering. All the money laundering, we know that, and the fugitive pursuit and repatriation. So that is really important too. I wonder if the Chans went to Beijing and they're trying to get the Chan brothers back, because they've done some real damage. Um, and they have major ties to China. They had websites all for the Chinese audience there in China. Okay, not the American Chinese audience, but uh, for China. Um, so, what does China have? What kind of connection does China have with these cartels, these terroristic organizations? They've been there all along. And I've been saying it for a long time because in Nova Casa Grandes, it's the Mormons and the Chinese, and they have their plaza dedicated to the Chinese. They have long agreements, historic agreements with the Chinese. They've grown together there in that area with the colonies, with the Mormon colonies. And so they've been there all along. That's the point. And of course, you saw that with Duarte's wife, and also, that Leilani Hart speaks Chinese, and that we have suspicions that she's a Chinese operative. Okay, because she has immigration problems into the United States. Uh, that's from her mouth. All of this is from her. Okay, and of course Sean Bernabe and all of these connections that we've made have Chinese elements to them. So they work in alliance with the cartels, and of course with the shipping and all of that. Um, and so I've put up uh, the post about how China has been there all along with the Mormon mafia that is in connection with La Linea, which is the armed military for the Juarez cartel. Pretty good armed military for the Juarez cartel because they fought off the Sinaloa cartel, major hit in 2011, that killed like 10,000 people, um, major violence and everything. And so La Linea is headquarters there in Nova Casa Grandes, and is considered the uh, the Juarez uh, military, the Juarez cartel military. And they're famous for um, having uh, former military, maybe even double-hatted like David Frost, right? On their military trained, American military, intelligence agency, special forces, but also Mexican law enforcement that is on their payroll and military service, right? Um, to do terror, to do terror. This is yes, and the other thing too, well, you can read the post. I think it's really very important to see all the connections, and I don't want to, all the posts are pretty long, and I don't know how to shorten them because I shorten them anyway, but they're pretty long because this is the meat. This is the meat of what's going on. We're not feeding you milk. We're not feeding you lies. We're giving you the truth, and the truth is pretty intense and has a lot of things that you need to, a lot of facts you need to know, and that's why some of our posts are pretty long, but it puts everything together, and I hope that everybody will share those posts and tell everybody about Richard's case and how it connects to this, how we've been robbed. We've been robbed. We've been paying at the gas station 3 or 4 times more than what we should be paying because the money gets trafficked, right? It gets recycled. The theft of everything gets recycled, and they were doing that with bodies as well, with the whole funeral fraud, with the whole COVID humanitarian aid, with all of that. And so, yeah, there's always a long story that goes with it to help everyone understand. So let me look. Thank you, Laura, for coming on. You're always so faithful, especially this late. Sooner or later, we will have Richard Halliday's remains back. Yes, this is our goal every day. Share, share, share all the information like Laura does. Laura shares. There's so many others that share all the information. And I really need to come. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Oh my gosh, it's so late all the time. I know. And I really need to come on earlier. But it is just really ramping up. This is what winning feels like. And we are in the vicious negotiations for Richard's remains. And all of the players, we're at the top. Marathon Petroleum, come on. That's like really big. You're talking about asset forfeiture of billions of dollars. Um, it's huge. And so for the US Treasury to be um, uh, you know, st- really being serious and freeze all these assets, it's huge. And of course, Paul Foster's right in the middle of it, and his wife Alejandra de la Vega Foster is really, really uh, well, she's the cartel operative, right? The double agent, the fuel thief, um, and by her recommendations, they brought in Cesar Paneche, who stole even more fuel with Grupo Carvel, his own gas stations, and then they brought in General Kelly, uh, and gave the contracts for security, and he got the contracts for the unaccompanied minors camps, right? So it really is very evil things that they're doing. Um, yes, and UTEP is totally control. UTEP is absolutely part of this. Texas Tech University Health Science Center is part of this. Park University is part of this. And it gets, like I said, it gets pretty convoluted. But they use that because you're talking about so much funds that they have to launder. They have to clean up so much money, these illicit gains, and so that's why they're you know swishing it into everything so that they can um, clean up what they have, and um, they have to pay off a lot of people to do it. So, but it's all coming out now, and it's going to be very, very interesting because now that bridge has to pay the United States, rightfully so. You saw that it's, shares the border. It's not like more on one side than the other. So rightfully so, the United States should get 50%. And that's talking about the fuel. And, let's see if they forged paperwork or, um, yeah, it's all being investigated, and the price gouging is being investigated, and and you have FBI Director Kash Patel going to China um, to talk exactly all of this. And I do want to mention one thing about Mark Carney. He's the Prime Minister of Canada. He is very connected to the Bank of England. He was a big part of the Bank of England. He is a British citizen. His wife is British. Um, and I think that this is really important for people to know that he really is kind of like Connor Wetton. He's not really Canadian, is he? He's really British. He's really British. Yeah. And that puts things in perspective um, because if he's British, then I wonder if he's establishing a British system there in Canada instead of American system. And that is a really good question, right? Because it's like Connell Wetton. He's trying to do the Mormon Mafia cartel system down there in El Paso, in Chihuahua, with no regards to the sovereignty of the United States or of Mexico. And I'm just wondering if Mark Carney, does he care about Canada's sovereignty, or is he more concerned with putting forth, maybe for the cartels, or more maybe for the British, right? It's just an interesting situation because they're definitely tied, Marathon Petroleum with El Paso, with the El Paso cartel, with Canada. And don't forget, one of the phone numbers that was harassing us, threatening us, writing vile and vulgar messages day in and day out for months came from Toronto, Canada. And, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. So thank you so much, Anicia, for coming on, for your prayers and your love. And thank you so much for sharing all of our posts. That really gives us a far reach. Thank you so much. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing.